Cyberpunk 2077 has just had a major update, version 1.3. With this comes a variety of gameplay, content, and bug fixes. Now, whether you've been here since the original trailer years ago, or just getting started, you've probably heard of Cyberpunk's less than stellar reputation at launch, with gamers plagued by glitches and buggy gameplay. And that's why today we're revisiting that eternal question: is Cyberpunk 2077 worth it? Let's start with the big question. Is Cyberpunk 2077 still glitchy? Well, I mean... So yes, sometimes the game still has its glitches. But honestly, it generally doesn't affect the gameplay that much, at least not for me as a casual gamer. And to be fair, the developers have really made a lot of fixes. Things seem overall smoother, there's less massive game-breaking glitches, and they've made some quality of life improvements as well, which we'll get to later. But just a note about what kind of fixes that have been made. During the initial versions of the game, sticky or broken keys were a huge issue, preventing access to grenades or health kits during critical moments. Character animations, especially ragdoll, sometimes broke completely. Every now and then objects would also clip into each other, and even once the character just whited out entirely. It looks like these have been mostly fixed, but I do notice still a few things, such as objects still clipping into each other. Also, it looks like at some point the skip conversation or skip cinematic button just broke. I mean, it's just not here anymore, and I can't find it anywhere in the settings menu. Nonetheless, overall, I think the game's quality has been significantly refined, and any small glitches that pop up during gameplay now usually just make the game a bit more lighthearted. So, if you're okay with a few glitches here and there, then you're probably wondering how the rest of the game fares. Well, there's plenty of ways to judge a game, and everyone has their own method. So today, I'll break it down into some major categories that I feel are important to my experience. First, let's talk about its gameplay. The combat in Cyberpunk is likely its biggest strength, in that it offers you the ability to play your way. By that, I mean it gives you a wide variety of different play styles. First and foremost are the firefights. Here, Cyberpunk provides a fairly good array of different weapons, including type and minor modifications. These range from tech weapons that shoot through walls, to smart weapons that track opponents. There's also a whole laundry list of different grenade types, and a whole lot of firearms, including pistols, shotguns, rifles, and snipers. While this seems like a lot, I do notice that the number of different weapon models is a bit limited, and so they become repetitive fairly quickly. But there is certainly enough that you'll find a combination that works for you. Plus, it looks like there have been a few content additions as well with the recent update. Next, melee combat. There are a few times when you'll be in a real cage match situation, and if your opponent is only melee, then the advantage is usually still to just use firearms. Nonetheless, it does serve a nice role in certain situations, such as when you want to go stealth, if you're backed into a corner, or run out of ammo. Speaking of stealth,
Damn it, B! Some much for being sly.
I'm not very good at stealth. Nonetheless, it's technically an option in a few cases, and in this category I'll also lump in cyberware, which allows you to remotely interact with objects, cameras, turrets, and NPCs. But again, while these options are available to you, I personally don't find it to be of much use aside from getting the first strike. But if stealth's your style, then go for it. And so, despite what the NPCs might tell you,
No! Not how we fucking play.
you can definitely play your way. Sometimes you can combine the different styles. Maybe start with sniper from far and slowly work your way into enemy territory. Or just say screw it all and just pistol blast and grenade stun them all like the Terminator. Next, I want to highlight a few specific mechanics in the game, starting with driving. It's still a bit clunky, at least on keyboard, but not as difficult to control as before. I do note that it's not uncommon to get stuck in places, and the game prevents you from exiting the vehicle if there are barriers on both sides of you, which can make you force to restart from a past checkpoint which might be a long time ago, and that is frustrating. I hope they fix this in the future by giving the player the option of a forced exit if they try a few times, so that progress isn't lost on such a bug. Next, crafting. And this is amazing. Namely, they finally allowed you to be able to craft in bulk. At launch, crafting was one at a time, which meant you had to spend a horrendous amount of time just sitting in the crafting menu, repeatedly clicking and holding down the crafting button to make anything from grenades, health kits, and ammunition. So this has been a very welcome update. Next is character customization. I think the amount of character stylization is fantastic, with a somewhat surprisingly extensive amount of clothing options available. There's also a skill tree, but it works as expected, and the level ups are mainly used to access certain entry points. What is very cool are the Ripper Docks. They can give you a variety of game-changing upgrades, like the Mantis Blades as built-in weapons, the Biomonitor that gives you a second wind when you're close to death, the Synaptic Accelerator that slows down time when you're detected, and of course, the classic Double Jump. Next is its accessibility options. These involve colorblind options which change the layout colors but not the world colors. There's also overhead text, which displays text near the NPC speaking. And last but certainly not least is the photo mode, and my goodness is this amazing. I mean, just look at these. It's almost like a whole game in itself. Next up we have the story. There's the main storyline, the romantic subplot, the many side quests.
Sorry, bud, but your fate's been sealed.
And that's about all I'm gonna say about it because it's that good, so I don't want to spoil it in case you're going to play the game yourself. I will clarify one thing though. You may have heard that there are 3 different paths or openings, and while yes that is true, they don't really have any truly significant bearing on most of the game. Nonetheless, I think they do really help draw the player into the world as you feel a greater connection with the storyline you've chosen. And maybe it'll be relevant again at the end of the game, but the game's story is quite long and I haven't finished it yet, and I really doubt it'll change the ending significantly or at all. Related to the story is of course the world building and the game's immersion. In terms of the amount of character and voice acting, I think it's just superb, and I really do commend them on that. There's also just a tremendous amount of detail, not only in things like weapon modeling, but also small aesthetics like stylized gun and vehicle displays that change in real time, some world destructibility including some finer details like swords leaving marks, and weapon appreciation animations the first time you use a weapon. Next, the graphics. These are absolutely stunning, and if you haven't noticed it yet in this video, just take a look at some of these clips. Now, not everything's perfect. There are several things I wish they'd change. From a quality of life perspective, the inventory management is extremely tedious. You are very easily over-encumbered, and it's not easy at all to sort through storage. Gameplay also turns you into kleptomaniac, grabbing everything during fights, even when it may be at your detriment. The trading prices are also terrible. Weapons cost several thousand, but you can barely sell yours for a few hundred. As such, I found it much more cost-effective to just disassemble weapons for crafting components. But of course, there's no way to mass disassemble, so you have to do that one by one. But as I mentioned, at least they made mass crafting possible, so you can make as many grenades as you want and just... The fast travel system is also at times problematic. To fast travel, you need to access one of the blue markers on the map, but you can't mark both the fast travel location that's closest to you as well as the side quest you want to go to. This means you have to memorize on the map which fast travel location is closest to your side quest. While this is doable, it's not ideal, and I think a quick fix might involve allowing the player to put down multiple cursors or just showing the side quest on the fast travel map screen. And yes, I do note that the map does show your main objective in yellow, but I haven't had it work for side objectives yet. Next is the police warrant system. It's just a bit too quick on the draw, especially at re-identifying you. So even though it's easy enough to evade them initially, they'll really quickly reactivate when you're anywhere near them again. As such, it's quite easy to get a wanted star level in this game, and the police at higher star levels are very, very tough. Finally, and this one is probably very player dependent, but I do notice that there doesn't seem to be too much difficulty scaling in the game. For example, enemies can have a huge range from very easy to very hard in terms of difficulty. I think though that this does make some sense given the world building context. But from a gameplay standpoint, for me it is sometimes quite jarring when you either steamroll an entire swath of opponents or suddenly find yourself against an impenetrable wall of just 3. But that's really it. So what does it all mean? Well, for the most important question, is the game fun?
Yo, got a gig for you. Corpos like to call it human asset liquidation.
Yeah, it is. There are just so many amazing little moments that happen, whether it's trying to get the drop on enemies by skipping a motorcycle off the freeway, or just head bopping someone with a grenade. The story is quite good, and the world building is fantastic. So after all that, is it worth it? Well, as much as a non-answer as this will be, that does really depend on what you value in a game, its price and its accessibility. For me, yes, it's been well worth it. But let me know what your thoughts are on the game and its newest update. And if you enjoyed the video, use that like button below and consider subscribing as well for more videos. Have fun.